Hey, what's up, everybody? We are back with some more NFL preseason DFS picks and lineup advice, DraftKings, FanDuel, strategy sleepers, some core plays. Welcome. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy. If you're new here, welcome. What we're going to do in this video, give you a couple of groups of players that you have to consider strongly for tonight's NFL preseason DFS slate. We're not saying you have to play all of these guys, but if you're not considering any of them, you're likely drawing dead for tonight's contest. And at the end, I'll give you a sleeper 5% owned or less that we believe has a chance to outscore everyone else that's higher owned at their position. So let's jump into it. We're going to try to keep this brief. And let's start at the quarterback position. We have two teams tonight, or two games tonight in action: Steelers, Falcons, Eagles, and the Colts. I'm recording this Thursday morning. There is some information that isn't known yet that we'll find out throughout the afternoon and leading up through pregame warmups. But this is what we know as of now. And the top quarterback on the slate, likely the highest owned, depending on how news shakes out later, is Tanner McKee for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, McKee has played a decent amount of snaps through two preseason games so far this year. And if we look at the trends under this coaching staff, typically in preseason week 3, this third quarterback, who is McKee, gets 60% plus of the snaps in that 60 to 80% range. We're anticipating, based on those trends, that not only will Jalen Hurts sit, but also Marcus Mariota, leaving lots of playing time for Tanner McKee. And I think most importantly, and if you've watched any preseason DFS this year, if you've rostered quarterbacks from other teams, Tanner McKee doesn't suck, which we can't really say about a lot of these quarterbacks that we are sometimes playing. McKee has looked the part so far, and as one of the likely leaders in playing time on the slate, Tanner McKee is one of the top quarterback options. And again, we could see some guys from these other teams approach his playing time and maybe even exceed it, but McKee has the best combo of playing time and talent as of Thursday morning. Moving on to the running back position, these two guys we've played heavily through 2 weeks. Nothing's going to change this time around, and that is in Atlanta. So if you look at Atlanta's running back group on DraftKings, it may scare you away, the amount of guys that they have. However, there's a bunch of fullbacks here, and some of these other guys are not going to play. So Bijan Robinson, we saw him for a few snaps last week. Same with Tyler Algier. They're not going to run these guys out for a heavy amount of snaps. In fact, there's a decent chance that we do not see Bijan at all and that we do not see Algier at all based on the coach's comments. Cordell Patterson is not playing in the preseason. He's always a veteran. He's resting. That leaves just Carlos Washington Jr. and Godwin Igwebuike to run snaps here for Atlanta. And looking at our notes that we have, these two guys have been productive when they've been on the field. Igwebuike has his yards per carry is through the roof through two preseason games. Carlos Washington getting play in the passing game. So those are things we love to see. And really, we just don't have any other options in this backfield. Trends don't matter. What the coaches are saying don't matter. These are likely the only two guys that are going to get significant run at the running back position tonight for Atlanta. They're going to be the top plays. They're going to be very popular. People are going to understand this. We think Igwebuike might be a little more popular based on his volume last week, but it doesn't matter. You can play both guys in the same lineup because they're going to play about a half each, more than likely, and they've produced when they've been on the field. So you have to consider these two strongly for your lineups. Now, if we look at the wide receiver position, I think there are two teams, position groups that stand out the most. First is Philly. They're going to rest a lot of guys tonight. They're dealing with a lot of injuries. And typically, if we look at their trends, it's guys that played the most in preseason week 1 and preseason week 2 that continue to play the most in preseason week 3. Those guys this week, I'll give you a couple names. Deion Kane, he missed the first preseason game, but he came back last week, had a ton of air yards. Looking here last week, Deion Kane, 87 air yards on 4 targets last week after missing week 1. He's going to play a lot again this week. Devon Allen missed week 1 as well. He came back last week, also saw four targets, played a lot of snaps as well. And then we have Joseph Ngata, 5,500. 9 targets, 110 air yards through 2 preseason games. The big deal here, Tyree Cleveland played a ton of snaps in preseason week 1, was on his way to playing a ton of snaps last week. Unfortunately, suffered that pretty scary-looking injury. He's placed on IR. He's out for the year. He won't play. That's 13 targets, 143 air yards that is now up for grabs in this Eagles offense in the preseason. Kane, Allen, and Ngata are going to be the guys that are best positioned to take advantage of that. The other position group, the other team, is Pittsburgh at wide receiver. Now, We don't expect their starters to play much, maybe a series or two based on the coach's comments. But historically, if you look at their playing time trends, and Tomlin has been there for a while, so these trends hold up pretty nicely. Whoever plays the most in preseason week 1 and is still on the roster plays the most in preseason week 3 as well. So let's get these Eagles guys out of here really quickly. The two guys that stand out the most are Calvin Austin, Gunnar Olszewski. And Calvin Austin had that long touchdown in preseason week 1. And if we look at the air yards through 2 games, Olszewski actually leads the team in targets, 10 through 2 preseason games. But it's actually Calvin Austin with 177 air yards that leads not only this team, but is one of the league leaders in air yards through 2 preseason games. These guys are going to play a lot. So the other guy that had been playing a ton for Pittsburgh is Cody White. He's been placed on IR. That's 9 targets up for grabs. So there's some opportunity here. So Austin, Olszewski are going to be the crowd favorites. They're the guys most likely to lead. But this actually transitions nicely into our final segment here, the low-owned play that I like. There aren't really many standout low-owned plays, but they're going to be guys that are going to be on the field who are going to get targets, and they're going to be a fraction of the ownership, and that's how we win in preseason DFS. So before I jump into that, make sure just really quickly that you are subscribed here on YouTube. It's free to do so. You'll get notified when we post these preseason videos every single day. So we got one coming Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Last week of the preseason, so make sure you get that content. And if you want to pay for content, you want to get all of the expert information, all of the details, all the notes that we've compiled, all of our top plays for every position. We always get comments on these videos. Who's your top defense? You didn't talk about a tight end. Who are some other guys? Listen, the Daily Plug at OccupyFantasy.com answers all of those questions as little as $7 a week. Links in the description, so make sure you check that out after you watch this video. Now, for my low-owned play, it's going to be that same position group. I'm going to go with either Miles Boykin or Dez Fitzpatrick. We'll go with Dez Fitzpatrick here as the official call for the video. Dez Fitzpatrick, again, we look at guys who lead the team in week 1, also lead the team in week 3 for Pittsburgh. And while Dez Fitzpatrick does not have a target through 2 preseason games, he's only played 30-35% of the snaps in each game. That total could approach 40-50% here. And again, we don't love playing someone who hasn't seen a lot of targets. But we do like people who are going to be on the field, and it is a small sample size of just 2 games. If you don't like Dez Fitzpatrick, if you have some sort of bias against Fitzpatrick, you can play Miles Boykin. He's in the exact same boat, where is going to play a decent amount of snaps, but also hasn't seen a target through 2 preseason games. But again, a 5th, a 10th of the ownership that Gunnar and Calvin Austin will have on Pittsburgh, and they're going to play a lot of snaps. That's the leverage that we really look for in preseason DFS. So to recap, I think we have it on screen here pretty nicely. Let's get Dez out of here. Let's get those Eagles guys in. To show you the guys that you should be considering heavily tonight, let's go back. We'll go with Ngata here. So Tanner McKee should play 60% plus of the snaps tonight for Philly. We're still very unsure about how much Indy starters are going to play. If we see that Anthony Richardson is going to play a half, that obviously moves him into top play considerations. Our Daily Plug will have that information later. So after Tanner McKee, the Atlanta running backs are going to play a ton tonight. There are some other good running back spots, and they may be outscored, but no one's going to match their playing time usually on tonight's slate. Carlos Washington Jr., Godwin, Igwebuike. And then the Eagles and the Pittsburgh receivers are going to play a ton tonight. These 4 in particular have seen a lot of targets when they've been on the field, and they should approach 50% of the snaps, if not more, tonight. The low-owned call is the pivot in Pittsburgh, either Dez Fitzpatrick or Miles Boykin at receiver instead of Gunnar or Calvin Austin. So that'll do it for this video. Again, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Give us a thumbs up if you like it. Any questions, you can always comment on the video. But Discord is the best way. We're updating stuff through Discord, answering questions, talking about the games in Discord, OccupyFantasy.com/Discord throughout the night. And the Daily Plug, OccupyFantasy.com, where you can get every single note on every single player that is playing tonight with our rankings for every single position. So Brian Jester for Occupy Fantasy, thank you for listening, and good luck in tonight's NFL preseason DFS slate.